Have you ever stopped to think about how you speak to Allah? Most of us pray, recite, and repeat familiar words every single day. We grow up learning certain phrases, certain prayers, and certain ways of worship. Over time, those words become habits. Now, habits can be good, they keep us consistent and disciplined. But if we aren't careful, they can also make our worship mechanical. We start speaking to Allah out of routine, not reflection. We move our lips, but our hearts are quiet. What if the way you speak to Allah could completely transform your spiritual life? What if the key to peace, clarity, and deep connection was hidden in the way you open your heart when you call upon Him? One of the greatest Sufi masters in history, Ibn Arabi, devoted his life to exploring this mystery. His writings on divine connection have guided seekers of truth for centuries. Ibn Arabi believed that nothing in existence happens by accident. Every sound, every movement, every breath is part of a vast reflection of God's will. For him, speaking to Allah was never a formality. It was a living dialogue, a sacred conversation between the soul and its creator. When a person speaks to Allah with true awareness, Ibn Arabi said, they don't just pray, they step into a higher state of being. But in today's world, that level of awareness can feel distant. Life moves fast. We rush through responsibilities, chasing deadlines, handling family, work, and worry, and in the middle of all that noise, prayer can become another task to complete. Maybe you felt that before. You start praying, but your thoughts wander, to what's next, to what went wrong, to what needs fixing. Your lips move, but your heart is somewhere else. Ibn Arabi warned that when the heart is not present, the words of prayer lose their spiritual power. He compared it to sending a letter without an address. The message exists, but it never truly arrives. Speaking to Allah requires presence, sincerity, and humility. It's not only about the tongue moving, but about the heart bowing in submission. Imagine sitting with someone you deeply love and respect. Would you talk to them half-heartedly? Would you rush your words or check your phone mid-sentence? Of course not. You'd be fully present, careful with every word, and listening intently. Now imagine this. When you speak to Allah, you are in the presence of the one who created the heavens, the earth, and everything in between. You are standing before the source of all mercy and all wisdom, and He is listening, completely and perfectly. That awareness alone can transform the way you communicate with Him. But here's the beautiful truth Ibn Arabi revealed. Allah is not looking for perfect speech, He is looking for a sincere heart. You don't need grand words or complex phrases. You don't need to sound poetic or flawless. You only need to speak honestly, from the depth of your being. Even if your words are broken, even if your voice trembles, if they come from love and sincerity, they reach the throne of the Most Merciful. The correct way to speak to Allah isn't about complicated rituals. It's about alignment, between what your heart feels and what your tongue expresses. When those two move together, even the smallest whisper becomes a powerful act of worship. And that's the liberating part. No matter who you are or where you are, you can connect with Allah directly, in any moment. You don't need a specific time or place. Whether you're walking, resting, driving, or sitting in silence, your heart can turn toward Him. Ibn Arabi taught that every moment in life is an opportunity to engage in that sacred dialogue. The challenge is not that Allah is far away, it's that we forget how near He truly is. Oh, pause for a second. Think about how you've been speaking to Allah until now. Are your prayers heartfelt or hurried? Do you only speak when you're in need, or do you also speak with gratitude, love, and longing? These questions matter, because the answers shape your spiritual path. And Ibn Arabi's wisdom gives us a clear map. He teaches us how to move from mechanical prayer to a living, breathing relationship with the divine. Before we continue, take a deep breath. Ask yourself quietly, how do I really speak to Allah? What feelings rise in my heart when I call upon Him? If you want, write it down somewhere, even one simple sentence like, speaking to Allah feels like coming home. Or, I struggle to stay focused, but I want to improve. Because that reflection, that self-awareness, is the beginning of transformation. Many people think speaking to Allah comes naturally, that it's enough to say a few memorized words and the connection is complete. And yes, Allah hears every voice. But Ibn Arabi taught that there are subtle mistakes that weaken the spiritual power of our words. The first mistake is speaking to Allah only in times of crisis or need. When life gets tough, we remember Him, but when things go well, we forget gratitude. This creates a relationship based on transactions, not love. Think about it, if someone only calls you when they need help, would that feel like friendship? True connection is built on consistency, through both joy and struggle. When you speak to Allah regularly, not only in hardship, you build a foundation of trust that strengthens your soul. The second mistake is allowing the mind to wander during prayer or dhikr. The human mind is restless by nature, it jumps from one thought to another. You might be reciting powerful verses while thinking about tomorrow's to-do list. But Ibn Arabi said that when the heart is absent, the words lose their light. It's like a lamp with no oil, form without flame. The third mistake is treating prayer as a lifeless routine. Repeating the same words isn't wrong, but when you stop reflecting on their meaning, they become empty sounds. Imagine telling someone, I love you, every day but never showing emotion or presence. Eventually, those words lose their warmth. The same happens when we pray without reflection. The fourth mistake is letting the ego dominate our conversation with Allah. Sometimes, people pray not from surrender, but from demand, as if trying to persuade God to follow their will. But true prayer is not about controlling outcomes, it's about trusting the one who knows best. When the ego is loud, the heart cannot hear the divine response. And finally, many forget that prayer is not just talking, it's also listening. After pouring your heart out, take a moment to be silent. Listen, not with your ears, but with your soul. Sometimes Allah answers through signs, events, or subtle shifts within you. That quiet awareness is part of the dialogue. These mistakes are common and human, no one is free from them all the time. But awareness is the first step toward correction. When you become conscious of them, you start to shift, from rushed and distracted speech to intentional, heartfelt communication. And here's what Ibn Arabi always reminded his students. Allah's mercy is vast. He doesn't expect perfection, He values sincerity. Even one small change in how you speak to Him can open doors to spiritual growth. So what does it look like to speak to Allah correctly? Ibn Arabi taught that it begins not with the tongue, but with the heart. The first principle is presence of the heart. Before you speak, pause. Breathe deeply. Remember that you are standing before the Lord of all worlds, the one who sees you, hears you, and knows you better than you know yourself. That awareness transforms the act of prayer from repetition into reverence. The second principle is humility and surrender. Approach prayer not as a command, but as a servant approaching their king. Instead of saying, give me exactly what I want, say, guide me to what is best. Humility softens the heart and opens the soul to divine guidance. The third principle is sincerity of intention. Ibn Arabi said that words without sincerity are like empty shells. You don't need poetic speech, you need honest feeling. Allah understands every tear, every pause, every silence. What matters most is that your heart is genuine. The fourth principle is listening as much as speaking. After prayer, remain still. Listen with the heart. Guidance may come as calm, as clarity, or as a change in circumstances. By being still, you create space for Allah's response to reach you. And the fifth principle, perhaps the most profound, is to speak as if you have already been heard. Pray with faith, not doubt. Trust that Allah is already responding in the best way for you, even if you can't see it yet. When you combine these principles, presence, humility, sincerity, listening, and faith, your prayers become more than requests. They become acts of love and trust. You begin to experience prayer not as a ritual, but as relationship. Knowledge alone isn't enough, transformation happens through practice. So how do we bring this into daily life? Step 1. Create a sacred space and time. In a world full of noise, choose a small corner where you can be alone, even for a few minutes. This physical preparation helps your heart prepare too. Step 2. Begin every prayer with gratitude. Before asking for anything, thank Allah for something: your breath, your health, your loved ones, even your challenges. Gratitude softens the heart and shifts your energy from need to trust. Step 3. Slow down your words. Don't rush through them. Feel each phrase as it leaves your tongue. Imagine that you are speaking directly to Allah, because you are. Step 4. After you finish speaking, sit quietly. Let silence become part of your prayer. Notice what arises: a thought, a sense of peace, a verse that comes to mind. That's how Allah often responds. Step 5. Carry that awareness throughout your day. Remember Allah in the middle of ordinary moments, while walking, cooking, driving, or working. A short whisper of Alhamdulillah or Ya Allah transforms simple actions into worship. And step 6. Be patient and gentle with yourself. Spiritual growth takes time. Some days your mind will wander, your heart will feel distant. That's okay. What matters is that you keep showing up with sincerity. Ibn Arabi said that Allah values the effort of the heart more than the perfection of the act. Over time, you'll notice subtle changes. Your heart feels lighter. Your worries feel smaller. You begin to see Allah's presence woven into every detail of your life. The final secret: when you speak, Allah speaks through you. Now we reach the deepest truth of Ibn Arabi's teaching. When you speak to Allah with full sincerity and presence, something extraordinary happens. It's no longer only you speaking. In that moment of complete openness, Allah Himself places the words upon your tongue. Your prayer becomes a mirror of His will. This is the ultimate secret of divine conversation. The act of speaking to Allah becomes an act of being spoken through. When your heart aligns with Him, even your desires begin to reflect His wisdom. Think of a river flowing toward the ocean. If you fight the current, you exhaust yourself. But if you surrender, the river carries you effortlessly. Prayer driven by ego is like swimming against the current, full of struggle and control. Prayer rooted in surrender is like floating, letting the current of divine will carry you exactly where you need to go. That realization changes everything. You stop trying to convince Allah to act in your favor, and start trusting that He already is. You stop fearing unanswered prayers, and start seeing them as protection or redirection. Even your hardships become part of the conversation. Each trial, each delay, each loss carries hidden mercy. When you speak to Allah about your pain, you're not simply venting, you're handing over your wounds to the one who heals hearts. Ibn Arabi taught that even pain has purpose. It's a form of divine speech, a message inviting you closer. When you see life this way, everything becomes sacred. Your entire existence turns into prayer. Every breath, every action, every silence becomes part of your dialogue with Allah. There's no longer a division between worship time and normal life. All of life becomes a living remembrance. And that's the transformation Ibn Arabi wanted for every soul, to move from talking to Allah to living with Allah. Over time, your heart becomes softer. Fear fades. Trust grows. You begin to feel guided, even in uncertainty. This is the state of peace the mystics called itminan, tranquility that comes when the heart is aligned with the divine. So before this journey ends, pause for one final reflection. The next time you speak to Allah, tonight, tomorrow, or any day after, ask yourself: will I speak with distraction or with devotion? Will I rush my words or open my heart? Will I treat prayer as duty or as dialogue with the one who created me? The choice is yours. And every word you utter, every whisper of sincerity, is already heard. Remember this truth. When you speak to Allah, He is already responding. Sometimes through silence. Sometimes through patience. Sometimes through the unfolding of life in ways you never expected. No word is ever lost. No tear is ever unnoticed. No prayer is ever unanswered, though the answer may come wrapped in wisdom. So tonight, speak to Allah with your whole heart. Don't worry about perfection, just be real. Because in that honesty, you will find what every soul is seeking. A living, breathing connection with the one who has always been near.